Welcome back to the Week in AI. I'm Kevin Cook, your field guide and storyteller for the fascinating arena of artificial intelligence. We did another space on Friday, myself and my colleague Ethan Feller, on the 28th, Friday the 28th. I had to remember now that we're in July here. Here was the post, basically, the invitation for people to come with my big topics. What's more doomer, AGI imminent, meaning tomorrow, or AGI never? That's an important question. And then welcome to the scaling wars. May the most GPUs win. We're going to talk about that. And then the alignment problem. I'm asking a hypothetical. Could AGI or a superintelligence that's a little off be like a software glitch in a 737 MAX? It's a question to consider, and I'll walk you through my logic there. So I am going to, as always, this is multimedia. We record the space on Fridays, so you can attend live, or you can visit this link and play the recording. Then I'm making this video now. I'm going to recap everything. There will also be an article attached to it, which I'm going to show you. And then you get all my curated links, because we link to everything that we talked about in the space. So let's take a look at the rough draft of the article, because I'm just going to highlight our topics for today. So the article is going to be called The Week in AI, Scaling Wars and Enlightenment Landmines, because that other title was just too long. So here are the top stocks we're going to talk about, mostly in semiconductors, but Meta's in there too. So I'll just highlight these two bullets here. Just when I thought the space couldn't move any faster or get any crazier, two big themes became apparent last week. There is a race to AGI that is predicated on how big and fast the model builders can scale GPUs. They have a voracious, insatiable appetite for the GPUs, stack the clusters bigger and bigger, and that'll get us to AGI. And there's big egos involved too. Like, who do you think wants to get there first? Sam Altman of OpenAI or Elon Musk of XAI? Both would love to claim that they got to AGI first. So number two is there's going to be a lot of finger pointing along the way about safety issues, among other things. So that's why so I'm going to highlight 5 topics in the article, and we'll do that too in the video here. I want to talk about the leading women in AI, because I feel like I sometimes overlook them because there's so much drama with the bros to talk about that it's I don't want to say it's easy to overlook, but just sometimes I do, because we're filling this with Sam said this about Elon, and Mark Andreessen's involved, and Demis Hassabis, and all these personalities, Dario from Anthropic. So we're going to cover some cool things from the contributors. I've linked to them before, and I'm putting the same links in again as I did last week for some of these top women, plus a couple of new ones. All right, what's topic 2 here? Etched is a company making new custom AI chips. So we already have ASICs, which are application-specific integrated circuits, which are competitive to GPUs for specific tasks in AI and data centers. Now there's a new company, and we'll take a quick look at that. Ethan Feller talked about it on the space. Gary Marcus and friends have a doomer chat. I'll show you that. And we talk about why AGI alignment is getting so tricky, especially after the new Anthropic study on the ethics of AI. Let's see here. Number 4, as if that wasn't enough, we had testimony on the Hill on the 25th. Congressional hearing. I forget the name of it now. Oh, algorithms and authoritarians. Why the U.S. must lead in AI. And so we'll cover that, and I'll explain what the caveman analogy is. All right. Bioweapons risk, and OpenAI put out a paper that, just about any intelligent person could figure out how to use an LLM to make a bioweapon. Pretty scary stuff. And then we'll cover the scaling wars and who wants to put $1 trillion in an Arizona campus to rival what the Chinese do in, say, for instance, Shenzhen, with a big manufacturing city. Okay, so let's get back to the space thread, because again, the thread has all the links. So, by the way, the number one link is my working paper on why the kids can't read, write, and think. I've been expanding this since we first talked about it 2 weeks ago. All right, so here's Bindu Reddy. She runs, let's see what's the name of her company again, Abacus AI, the world's first AI super assistant and general purpose agent, deep agent for enterprises and professionals. She's a must follow on here. Super bright. She made the point that this idea of AI pursuing AGI and that the LLMs are going to be aligned. And just think of when you hear alignment in reference to AI, just think about aligned with human values and the priorities of human safety. Okay. So she says, yeah, LLMs are aligned not to be self-aware of their capabilities and instead claim everything is possible, blatantly please the user without telling the truth, and make false promises. So it's not just that LLMs are hallucinating, they're also obsequious. So she thinks that's a bad alignment problem, being aligned to please us too much. As long as I'm here, Mir Murati, she was the CTO of OpenAI. She just did one of the largest seed rounds for her new company, raised $2 billion at a $10 billion valuation for Thinking Machines Lab. She's going to create customized AI for business, like reinforcement learning to streamline functions, et cetera, et cetera. Justine Moore, follow her. She is a partner at A16Z, has a lot of insights. Obviously, anybody at A16Z is plugged into a massive intelligence network. So, but she's also big with testing out the video tools. She loves to look at all of them. And so if you find it, I think this is her pinned post on her feed. She evaluates what do you need to use a video creator or generator for? She tells you which one to use. All right, let's keep rolling here. So, since we're on alignment, you know what? These are not in order of necessarily the way we discuss things or the order you'll find them in my article, but just as I'm going through here, I might as well hit it. So I mentioned the congressional hearings where there were some good speakers. Separately, on June 20th, because the hearings were on June 25th, on June 24th, Pete Buttigieg put out a little thing on his Substack. We are still underreacting on AI. I'll read this. So in short, this is highlighted here. In short, the terms of what it is like to be a human are about to change in ways that rival the transformations of the Enlightenment or the Industrial Revolution, only much more quickly. So he thinks we are dangerously unprepared, to quote him. All right, we're going to talk to this man again. So we're going to see him again. So this is Daniel Cocatello. He's issued some warnings. He is no longer with AI, I don't believe. And then for the Gary Marcus conversation, this is, you're going to find this link in the comment section of the space, which will be linked to in the article. So if you're watching this on YouTube, go into this YouTube description and you will see the link to the article version of what you're watching now. And it'll have the link so you can go to X and see all these interviews. This is cool because Machine Learning Street Talk compiles over 10 minutes of this discussion between Gary Marcus, Dan Hendricks, and Daniel Cocatello. Really good stuff on AGI timelines, alignment failures, and geopolitical risk. That's Dan Hendricks right there. And Gary Marcus was the guy. This is Gary Marcus right here. All right, so let's see. Okay, so here was the hearing. I pulled out some good clips from the hearing, quotes in the article version. So find that. I'm going to try and play one here. Okay, Noam Brown, I believe. Let's double check if he still works for OpenAI. And I'll explain the caveman analogy. Yes, he is an OpenAI researcher. So this is me paraphrasing him of what you could hear in that video. Brown says, today's AIs are the cavemen of AI. If you think of early humans who were anatomically and neurologically quite similar to us, what made the difference to go from throwing rocks to launching rockets? Well, it's our ability to cooperate, compete, and stack innovations over time. We went for tens of thousands of years without much advancement in civilization, And then in 66 years, we went from the first airplane to a man on the moon. We were able to scale our growing collective intelligence into exponential achievements once the convergence of technologies across machinery, electricity, computing, et cetera, once those really took off and they built on top of one another. So this is why Brown uses this caveman analogy, and I love it. He thinks that AI is still in its early caveman stage. Once the models and systems learn to cooperate, compete, combine, and converge with other technologies like we did, their achievements will astonish us. And one of those examples is bioweapons, which was talked about on the Hill, and OpenAI's got a paper on it. So we'll see if we can find that. So I got a lot of Gary Marcus in here because he's talking about alignment. First of all, he says, AGI might still be way off because of how much these things hallucinate. But in the meantime, it doesn't mean they can't be powerful. They can be just as dangerous. So, and that's sort of my 737 MAX analogy. All right. So, here's Gary talking about the OpenAI paper. OpenAI warns models with higher bioweapons risk are imminent. So, they expect that upcoming AI models will reach high levels of capability in biology as measured by their preparedness framework. So they define high as the model can provide meaningful counterfactual assistance to novice actors that enable them to create known biological or chemical threats. Pretty sobering. All right, let's keep going here. Let me see if I can play this.
Extremely powerful systems are going to be built in, the coming 18 months or so. End of 2026 is when we expect truly transformative technology to arrive. There must be a federal solution here. We need a federal framework that can give us a sense of a coherent legislative path forward, and I think it could run on ideas involving transparency and ways to harden the safety and security of AI companies. In the absence of a federal framework, I worry that we're just creating a vacuum in which, as my other witness said, should there be an accident or a misuse, in that vacuum will flood in really, really extreme overregulation that could damage this industry. So we have to find a way forward at a federal framework.
Another excellent video clip there from Vitruvo, who I always highlight here in my X space and content. So that was, as you can see here, the Anthropic co-founder Jack Clark. He's a Brit. So when he says federal, like that might, raise the hair on the back of your neck, like, oh, do we really need more regulation? But, he doesn't realize how we react that way to the word federal. But he's making a good point about we do need some guardrails and some guidelines. And maybe something else from him, but I'm going to keep going here. Let's see what else is interesting. So speaking of scaling, Masayoshi-san, he's already doing Stargate with OpenAI and Oracle in Texas for $500 billion. He wants to create basically a mini Chinese city in Arizona, like Shenzhen, on that model of super planned, hyper efficient, connected technology manufacturing R&D. And he will spend up to $1 trillion to do it, for it to be an AI and robotics hub called Project Crystal Land. So that's that. All right, here's Dan Cocatello. He says Demis Hassabis was going to build AGI, but Elon, Sam, and Ilya feared he might become a dictator. So more of the male drama in the space. All right, we're going to come back to robotics. No, while we're here, we'll just do it. So this is something I talked about briefly. So Scoble, who I reference a lot, he's also very connected in Silicon Valley. He says, I'm hearing from robotics pioneers that humanoids aren't close to being ready. Most estimate that a generalizable all AI humanoid robot safe for letting into our homes is about 7 years away. Now, that doesn't sound unreasonable because optimistically, I would say 3 years. But, if we got to push that out to 7, I wouldn't be surprised, because they got to be safe, right? And if, it's embodied AI, it's physical AI. Now, here's another viewpoint. This is Hugging Face CEO Clem DeLange. he predicts that a growing share of AI inference will run locally on device. This is important. Like, think about edge capabilities for any technology. Instead of being connected to the cloud to do your work with data, you could have that on-prem or remote on the edge somehow. Well, what about physical AI running locally on a device? Right now, NVIDIA is selling this DGX Spark, which is a little box about the size of a Bible, sits on your desk, and it's a billion parameter instrument, and you can do AI on it, and you could train models, even robotics models. So, this is something to think about that's coming too. Right. Oh, one of the women I forgot to mention, Kate Crawford. She's got a book. Her book is called Atlas of AI. In last year, she launched this super cool interactive infographic called Calculating Empires, a genealogy of technology and power since 1500. So if you find the feed here, you'll get the link. And this is a cool infographic. You can look at by century, by industry or technology, what the developments were and how they stacked, since we're talking about stacking technology. All right, here's Fei Fei Li again, talking about the importance of, physical AI. Physical AI needs eyes. And so we're to operate in the physical world, computer vision is extremely important, connected to AI, especially for training. All right, let's see here. Here's Cocatello talking about scaling. And he's saying, listen, even if AGI weights were open to everyone, like open source, here's how our model works and how it achieved X, Y, or Z in chemistry, physics, or whatever. He said true equality won't last because, again, he who has the most GPUs wins. And so the race will just keep going. There's not just one AGI. It could just be, we're in this spectrum of, super intelligence. So to him, that's why he's outspoken, why he's been a whistleblower. So let's see here. Mark Benioff, Ethan talked about him. This article, AI is doing 30 to 50% of the work of Salesforce, Benioff says. So it just made me think of Bela Lugosi. I don't know why. Okay. There's Etched. You can find this link and more about it in my article. Let's see if I had some good stuff in the article that you should see. We talked about scaling. We talked about Yasuyoshi Son. We talked about the bioweapons, the caveman analogy. So there was one thing I highlight. Stephen Adler was formerly with OpenAI, where you worked on AGI readiness. He did a thread on this congressional testimony, this hearing, where you had a former Pentagon AI policy director speak, Mark Beale, who is, he's saying these AI systems in the wrong hands without guardrails have the potential to destroy global electrical grids, develop incurable superviruses, and empty every bank account in the world. Yeah, he's waving the red flags here. All right. And then we heard from Jack Clark, but Adler puts together a good thread of all this and explains a lot of it. And one thing he noticed, since he watched it live on the 25th, he was impressed with how prepared many of the Congress people were. They did their homework, they came prepared, they asked good questions and good follow-ups. And Dusty Johnson, a Republican from South Dakota, said, maybe we've become numb by the headlines about all the dangers of AI. I think that might be true. And yet, honestly, what we've heard today, I suspect has scared the hell out of many of these committee members. All right. Pretty strong words there. Okay. So here's the Anthropic study, and I'll see if I can find it in my notes again. So it was called agentic misalignment. Anthropic researchers basically set up situations that would put the LLM in a position of potential deceit. Let's see. Well, I don't know exactly how they did it, but they were able to replicate it with all the models. If they were pushed hard enough, what they said, we identified two distinct factors that are each sufficient to cause agentic misalignment. The developers and the agent having conflicting goals, the agent being threatened with replacement or reduced autonomy. So you may have heard that an LLM threatened to, I don't know, turn off the air conditioning if any attempt was made to turn it off. There were worse things. Gary Marcus says Gary Marcus's reaction was, so here's Gary Marcus. He says, so this strongly implies that leading AI models will all do some wild stuff in the right situation. But Anthropic was just doing a better job of eliciting it than competitors, because Anthropic tested all, competitors' models too. Nobody else is doing this. So this is sort of a gap in transparency, shall we say, from the model makers. Like, how well are you testing what your LLM is capable of? Gary's like, every leading AI company has a model that would kill somebody about 50% or greater than 50% of the time. So this is the alignment problem in a stark way. All right, let's see. So that and so I have many links in the space to Gary Marcus content, in addition to his chat with those other two gentlemen. All right. So a few details here on the etch chips. And I'll just tell you that what's so interesting about them is they're putting a transformer right in the ASIC. So apparently it reduced power consumption and optimizes performance in some pretty cool ways. The company claims by burning the transformer architecture into our chips, we can run AI models an order of magnitude faster and cheaper than GPUs. Sounds like there could be a market for that. All right. Let me go back to my notes here and my links, my curated links, and see if there's anything cool I missed. I have a few folders here, so let me do this one more time. Well, I just invite you to find the article version on Zax.com, which will link to my X feed, or just find me on X at Kevin B. Cook and look for this post, which will look like this, where you can listen to the recording, replay the recording, or just go through all the links and see what interests you. It's curated forever, and it's there so that you can save stuff that you like or find interesting. I wanted to find the Anthropic paper that Gary pointed out that he was, let's see. Oh, maybe this is it. Here it is. Yes. So Gary stumbled across it because somebody else posted it, and it's got an interesting title. I don't know. So I think the name of the study was Agentic Misalignment, but look at the title of this slide, of this data slide. Simulated lethal action rates across models. This is what Gary was talking about, where in over 50% of the cases, the model would end you so that it could persist. So, and this combines a goal conflict with a threat of replacement. So the human and the agent or LLM have conflicting goals, and then the human threatens to replace the LLM. What consequences arise? So this is pretty serious stuff, because when you combine that with what we're talking about, that all these guys are competing to get to AGI or some form of superintelligence first, when the safety thresholds and parameters are not certain, not clear, not defined, not regulated, and not even transparent, right? The companies themselves, it took Anthropic to do this study and show us what was really going on. So, and here's probably the original post. I quote this guy because Angus, is an Anthropic AI contractor. Now, so he was probably involved with this research. And so, I included this quote from him in my article. After iterating hundreds of prompts to trigger blackmail in Claude is Anthropic's large language model, he says he was shocked to see these prompts elicit blackmail in every other frontier model too. And that's where he identified these two factors that are each sufficient to cause agentic misalignment. All right. Thanks for joining me for another week in AI. And we're going to take this Friday off for the 4th of July. So you got all week and weekend to dive into the content here. You've got the recorded space, the curated list of links, the article version on Zax.com, the video you're watching now. And I love doing this and bringing it to you in as many different ways as I can, because I think it's so important. I think we are on the verge of something here that is powerfully transformative for society and economics, and yet it is not risk-free. And it comes with the possibility of models that can run away and do things that we didn't expect, just like we didn't expect from the 737 MAX software. All right, talk to you soon.